I am cracking up. I literally just gave a whole monologue just moments ago, thinking I'm talking to you. And I wasn't because we weren't live. Hello, it's Barbara Brooks, and I am your host of the Morning Cup. This is a show that I bring you every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. And it's really for those of us over 40, 50, 60 plus, although most of the topics are relatable for any human. Today, we're talking about burnout. And you know why? Because it's real. And there's so many of us that go through burnout, so many. And you know what? In particular, I think women are the ones that are going through burnout, probably even more so than any other human being. And the reason is, especially over 40, 50, 60 plus, because we've been working all of our entire lives, taking care of kids, taking care of parents, especially at this age, taking care basically of everyone else, sometimes more so than ourselves. And what happens? Burnout. So I can't wait to share with you a little secret, a little something that happened to me earlier this year when I struggled with burnout. I'm really excited to bring these two guests on. They have different perspectives, but combined, it's really good stuff. Again, we're talking burnout today on the Morning Cup. So my first guest I'm bringing on, now that I am actually live, I'm bringing Mandy on. Hello, Dr. Mandy. Welcome to the Morning Cup.
Hi, Barbara. Thanks for having me.
Top of the morning to you.
Yes.
Right? So today we're talking about burnout, as I said, and you're a doctor in this area. And by the way, I just moments ago when I thought we were live, I said I didn't know how to pronounce your last name. How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, so it's just the last Z is silent, so it's Marziaz.
Marziaz. Okay, I've got it now. All right. Let's talk about burnout. I'm curious. Tell me a little bit about your doctorship and what it is you do for a living.
Yes, so I am a chiropractor by license. It's kind of where I say that's where the pinnacle of burnout happened for me. I went back to school to be a chiropractor in my late 30s, transitioning from academia. I was in biomedical research for many years, and that's a quick way to burn out also.
Wow.
But it was years and years in the making, right? I'm a marathon runner. I'm all the things that help lead to burnout. I'm a Jersey girl.
I
And
thought maybe you were an East Coaster.
yes, Jersey girl. And yeah, so I became a chiropractor. I finished school just before my 40th birthday. And that is a male dominated profession. And if you
Oh, yeah.
follow male coaches coaching the masculine way to do things, work 16 hours a day, you're going to burn out. And by 2020, I had hit pure burnout and didn't realize until I stepped off the treadmill and my business got shut down. And I was like, wow, I can't do this anymore. So in 2021, I sold my brick and mortar chiropractic business and transitioned to working in functional medicine and health coaching, specializing in women going through the menopause transition. Now I have a completely virtual business and I have a lot more self care things in place to prevent myself from going down the road of burnout again.
Well, I bet that's right. I mean, did you say 16-hour days, by the way?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And by the way, what I love is the idea that you've proven to others who sometimes think they can't do something new over 40, by saying that you literally dropped an entirely different career and you swiveled to become a doctor of chiropractor. So that's interesting that you did what a lot of women hope and wish, and I encourage to do in life. So burnout. So what were the symptoms when you experienced your burnout?
Yes. So I didn't get the subtle signs. I didn't read those signs. When I knew I was in burnout, I mean, I was in a lecture hall every day at school, flat on the ground, sleeping, despite the fact that I'm drinking 2 pots of coffee a day because I can't in this dirty, nasty carpet that God knows when it was cleaned last, right?
Right.
I just couldn't keep my eyes open. I'm a runner and I was in chronic pain, like back pain that would make you cry. You would have no idea why I still got up and ran at 4 a.m. every day. Mood swings. And I didn't really see that in myself. My husband was kind of like, hey, you're a little bit crazy. And he was smart enough to say that after I recovered.
Yeah.
But break a nail and I'm crying like a toddler in the corner. I can't handle any stress. My immune system, first, like I caught everything that came around. And then it was just depressed. I'm like, people are sick around me and I'm not getting sick at all. It's like
Right.
my body. And the biggest sign for me was my menstrual cycles went away. And Western medicine said, oh, you're just in early menopause. No, I wasn't. I had hypothalamic amenorrhea, they call it, which is when your brain and your ovaries stop talking because you're so stressed out. Your body's prioritizing making cortisol and not making sex hormones. And in my late 30s, I had still hoped to have some fertility left, and that really wasn't happening if I wasn't ovulating. Ended up not having kids. I'm a dog mom, happily. But yeah, so yes, love dogs.
Yes.
So yeah, my body was just breaking down, and
Wow.
no one was helping me.
Well, what are the biggest myths around burnout? Because I will admit, I was one that didn't believe in it. I shouldn't say I didn't believe in it. I just didn't think that I would be one that would experience it because I could just keep going and going and going. I didn't recognize the signs myself that once I look back after experiencing it, I'm like, oh, that was burnout. That's what happened. So, what are the biggest myths around burnout?
Yeah, I think the number one biggest myth, and especially for women, is that we have to burn out to be successful. I hear this from clients all the time. When I get to level X, Y, and Z in my business, then I can back down and take care of myself. And it's like, no, we do not have to hit burnout to be successful. It doesn't have to be, oh, if I'm
Right.
at the top of my game, then I can take a step back.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way at all. I think that's the biggest myth out there.
That's interesting because that, yeah, until we hit it, yeah, that makes sense that we would do that. And what happens a lot of times with women, I'm discovering that many of us are not alone, is that we don't even want to ask for help. So we don't even so nor neither so we're not recognizing the burnout, or we know it's burnout. We just keep going and we don't want to ask for help because we just keep going because everybody is relying on us to get things done. What are some of the symptoms of for other people? So we talked about yours. What are some of the other basic symptoms?
Yeah, and so in burnout's a spectrum. So if you catch it when it's early, more subtle symptoms, then you don't have to be the person lying on a dirty carpet in the afternoon because you can't keep your eyes open. But one of the biggest symptoms I see is just loss of joy in life for things that you used to enjoy. Like I'm a runner. I stopped enjoying running. I'm a people person. I'm like, oh, I'm just peopled out. Even now, like if I start to say that, I'm like, you're working too much in your business and you need to take some time for you because you're not peopled out. You're just so burned out, you don't want to deal with people. Um, and mood swings, and then the physical symptoms like getting chronic headaches, chronic neck and shoulder tension, um, brain fog,
Mm.
digestive issues, feeling like you just can't relax. Like I work with so many women that tell me, all night long, my brain is just going, going, going. Can't
Yes.
stop that monkey mind. And that's a huge sign that you're on your way to bigger problems.
So knowing that, because you're so right, and we already have sometimes an issue with with sleeping, brain fog, and all those things because of menopause. Now, I didn't recognize that that also is a symptom, could be a symptom of burnout. So, what is one thing that people can do today that will help us sort of slow down and start and get on that road to recovery if we are experiencing burnout?
Yeah. So this is the one I love when I work with people to start with. Schedule you. Like
Yeah.
boundaries are so huge, right? Boundaries with our time, but you have to schedule you and you have to have boundaries around your time. I was just coaching someone last night and she's in the process of opening a business and she's like, "Well, when the clients want to see me, that'll be my work hours." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. Set up your work hours and set up your you time." Like I get up at 4 in the morning. I don't start seeing clients till 10 or 11 because that time is my time to work out,
What do
to
you do
have
during
my
that time?
breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your morning routine?
So I have a little like kind of meditative morning routine that I use to get centered into my body. And then I work out. I spend some time with my two dogs. I make breakfast and I try to force myself not to eat at the computer, to have a nice leisurely breakfast. This time of year, I'm running in the dark. So I like to sit outside, get a little bit of sunlight before I start. But a nice, relaxed morning.
You know, I love that that you have set your own boundaries and that you have your own you time. And I'm the problem is I think for some is that we'll schedule you time and then we let it go.
Mhm.
because a client calls or because there's something that needs to happen or that we think needs to happen in that moment versus just having a moment of rest and R&R, even if it's just for 10 minutes. So how do we make sure that we stick to that time that we're scheduling instead of negotiating? Because I always negotiate with myself. I'm like, oh, I'll do it later. I'll just go ahead and, I got it on my calendar, but I'll schedule you time and I'll get it done later. So, negotiating with myself. What do you do in that instance? How do you
Yeah, so there's
make
two things
this?
I do to help with that. Number one, I start my day with 3 goals for the day, right? Because as women, we have an endless to-do list and
Yes.
it's never getting completed. So if you can
Yes.
narrow down to 3 things you absolutely have to complete today, super helpful, super focused.
So
And then
agreed.
sometimes I have to sit on my hands. Like one of my boundaries is I do not check work emails Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And my clients
Oh,
know that.
Friday
You can
even.
Yep, Friday's my day off. It's my me day. And sometimes I have to sit on my hands because I'm like, I know someone's struggling. What if they're emailing me? And so I just have to, and the more I do it, the easier it becomes.
Okay. Okay. I love that. Now, what is one, because you've just given us more than a few tips. What is one more action tip? And then we'll talk about your workshop at BizLifeCon.
Yes. So I work with my clients in a program called Positive Intelligence, which is super simple, easy things you can do to ground yourself. So one of my favorites from there, it's all kind of sensory stuff to get us in our bodies. So one is just rubbing 2 fingertips together so you can feel every ridge and groove. You can do this for 30 seconds. You can do it for 5 minutes. You can do it under your desk at work when you're on a meeting that's like triggering you. Just, yep, doing the hands, feeling all the ridges and grooves on your
And
palm.
really feeling it.
Yes, going
Yes.
slow, which is hard for me to slow down,
I was just doing this.
right? But it really just gets us in our bodies and gets us out of swirling up here. And then we can come from a grounded place when we're doing things.
I love positive intelligence. I was telling you that I took the class, a 6-week course on it, and it really I highly recommend it to people because, and I think especially for people that are living with ADHD, it's really great to have a chance to figure out how to slow your brain down 3 times a day. That what is it, 9, noon, and 3 o'clock? You stop and do a
Mhm.
2 minute, at least a 2 minute PQ, positive intelligence rep. Yeah. What are you going to be doing? What can we expect at BizLifeCon from you? I'm so excited that you're going to be here and our next guest.
Yes. So I'm going to be giving a workshop on Saturday at BizLifeCom. We're going to be talking about burnout, some ways to recognize it, some ways to prevent it, and what to do if you're, currently in a state of burnout. Because I think that's where a lot of women, especially as you said, women over 40, we've been doing this our whole lives, putting everybody else first. So kind of hitting that point. So what we can do to reset. And one of my core values is simple. So they're going to be simple things that you can implement into your life right now, not something to further, add to your to-do list.
Yes, that's the clue. That's the key, not to add to the to-do list or your top 3. Well, I want to say thank you, and I'm really happy that you're going to be there at BizLifeCon, and we're going to bring on another person who has a different perspective on burnout, and I believe it's going to be more towards business. So thank you so much. I'm going to put you back in the green room, and we'll bring you back in case there's another part of the conversation that we can continue. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're bringing on Chrysta Bairre. And Chrysta, welcome to the stage.
Thanks for
Hello.
having me.
What did you think? I'm sure you had a couple of
Yeah.
yes, I can agree moments. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, Chrysta, because I know you, but yeah.
Yeah. So I am a career coach, a speaker, an author. And, I like this topic, burnout, is very near and dear to me because it's really how I started my business, was because of burnout. And it really looked like I had this habit. I was in this cycle in my life, but mostly at work, of taking a really high level of responsibility for everything, right? Like one thing that I learned about burnout for myself was like it's not always about how many hours you worked. Like Dr. Mandy talked about, 16-hour days. I never worked 16-hour days, but yet I still burned out. So like, it's not always about how much you're working. It's like how much psychological stress and how much responsibility, like how much personal responsibility are you taking for every single thing that's happening throughout the day?
Yes.
And so, I was totally upside down. I experienced some really significant burnout in my 30s, and just that
Oh,
came
in your
in
30s.
my 30s. Yeah, I experienced really significant burnout and had all these health issues. And that led me to start writing a work-life balance blog as I tried to really dive deep for myself into how do I really do this better? How do I work in a way that's going to work for me? Because I wasn't working 16-hour days. And honestly, when I started writing that blog, I was only working 35 hours a week. So you would think like, you're not overworked. Like, how can you have burnout working fewer hours? And it's like, because it was the psychological aspect of what I was taking on. So I wrote that blog. I was writing weekly blog posts for about 8 years. But what ended up happening was, after I'd been writing that blog for a while, people would come to me for advice about their work and how do I manage this and how do I manage that? And people kept saying to me, like, you should do this for a living. And at first, I didn't get it when people would say that to me. I was like what? Like, give people advice about how to work better, like how
Yeah.
to live their lives and work in a way that
You're like,
works
is that
for
a
them.
thing?
Like, I was like, yeah, I was like, is that a thing? And, then I had an opportunity to work with a coach myself. And then I realized what that could look like and ended up launching my business. I was 40. So, you're talking about like the total career change.
Yeah.
I had a career in HR and accounting, and then I started my own business at 40 because I wanted to do my life differently and my work differently. And, but it was really like experiencing burnout and starting that blog that led me to what the business is. And now I get to help other women who are, they may be in an acute phase of burnout right now, but in some cases they're just headed that direction. And we're like, let's address this now so that you don't get to that point, hopefully, of total burnout.
Yeah. Well, and what are business boundaries? And what can they do to really prevent burnout? What are some of the business boundaries?
Yeah. So, business boundaries, is something that I work on with all of my clients. Most of us know what boundaries are, and we think of it in terms of like personal relationships, but we can have boundaries in business relationships. And if you don't have boundaries in business relationships, you're probably way more likely to get burned out. So some different business boundaries. We already talked about some, well, with Dr. Mandy, she talked about schedule, like how you manage your schedule. Like that's a boundary. That's a boundary that you can set for yourself. That is a way that you create clarity and intention around how you want to work. When are your peak times that you're most productive, you're most effective? Schedule your schedule and how you use it is a great example of business boundaries. So is, how do you communicate expectations and what does that look like? For example, with my clients, they know because I let them know up front that the best way to get in touch with me is email. And we do have phone calls sometimes when a client needs something, but that doesn't look like the client just randomly calling me on the
Yes.
phone. Because, if I'm in the middle of writing a newsletter, let's say, and I
Right.
just get a call out of nowhere, my client's not going to be getting my full attention in that
Right.
moment, right? Even if I switch gears, it's going to take me a minute to fully switch gears. So I communicate upfront to clients. I'm like, if you need a phone call, email me and we'll schedule time later today for the phone call to happen so that I can be in the best place to serve you. But
Yeah.
that's an example of a business boundary, is like communicating how I work best with people rather than just trying to adapt myself to what everyone else is doing.
Yeah. You know what? The idea of the getting the calls in the middle of deep work, or any kind of project work, that's also a hindrance on even the project that you're working on. It's
Yeah.
sort of like, I think we've all had this happen where clients call because they've got your cell, obviously, because we want to be there for them. but but when you get that call and you know you have to answer it, so you answer it. And they don't realize it's kind of like when you're in an office and somebody comes into your office and says, "You got a minute?" Or they just walk right in and you're in the middle of work and they want that attention on them. Next thing you know, you're sort of off your game in a sense. And sometimes, especially I think for people with ADHD or who may find it difficult to focus anyway, it is good to set those boundaries, because it's sort of sometimes hard to get back to that moment of going back to your deep work and that project that you were doing. You're sort of knocked off your game.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like the mental transition time between tasks. And not everyone's brain works that way, but my brain works that way. My brain works like I kind of set myself up mentally for whatever it is I'm doing. So if it's face-to-face time with a client, or, phone time with a client, I'm in one sort of mental space, emotional space, energetic space. But if I'm doing the project work or the deeper work, then I'm in a different space. And so it's really honoring how I work best and not expecting myself to work in a way that doesn't work for me. Another example of business boundaries that I talk about a lot is saying no, like how and when to say no in business situations. Because when someone, whether you work for yourself or someone else, the feeling that most of us have is like, if this person pays me, I have to say yes to them, to whatever they're requesting. And that's just not true. And so, oftentimes I'm working with clients around like, when do we say yes with integrity and when do we say no with integrity? And like, it's not disappointing people or disrespecting people to say no. It's actually honoring ourselves, it's honoring them, it's honoring the relationship, to be really clear. Like Brene Brown says, clear is kind. And like business boundaries are all about clarity, and that enhances relationships. It's not a detriment to relationships, but that's not how it feels in the moment. Like we feel like I have to take this call. They're asking me to do this thing. I have to do this thing because they're the person that pays me. And I'm like,
right.
Definitely not. You have to, it's like you can, or you can also say no. And saying no can improve many business relationships you have. If you're doing it with intention and in integrity.
Well, and it can also improve your income, because let's talk about the fact that burnout it sounds like it affects our income, our sales and revenue.
Absolutely. So one thing that I find is really common with the clients who work with me is that they are not making the money that they want to make. And this pattern that we get into at work of, if we're consistently over giving of our time and energy, if we're not setting boundaries around work, if we feel like we constantly have to be giving more, what ends up happening is that we start getting paid less. And so when most of us think about how do I increase my income, we automatically go to a place of like, I have to do more, I have to give more, I have to be more. Yes. And I'm like, actually, probably what you really need to do is less. And again, it comes back to being really intentional about what you're doing and how you're doing it and when you're doing it. But what I find with clients who work for me work with me is very commonly they see significant increases in their income, like $10,000, $15,000.
Wow.
Because we're putting some of these business boundaries and these structures in place to support them. And that means other people start to value you more as you value yourself more.
So I love that, because you're right that less is more. Less inevitably is more. And you're right. We do have the mindset of, oh, if I do more, then I'll secure more clients. But then next thing you know, you're burning out because you're getting more clients. Yes.
Yeah.
I get it. What's your take on putting your own, we say this a lot, putting your oxygen mask on first. What is your take on that?
So I like to, when I'm giving speaking engagements, I like to talk about the oxygen mask analogy, because, we hear put your own oxygen mask on first. And I like to point out to people, and I usually ask the audience, I say, what is happening when we're being advised to put on our own oxygen mask first? What's happening? What's that scenario? The plane is crashing, right? Like that's the scenario that the oxygen mask analogy comes from. We're saying put on your own oxygen mask first. When there is something horribly wrong mid-flight, the plane is going to go down. And what I like to say is don't wait until your own personal plane is crashing to put on your own oxygen mask first.
I
And
love that.
We talked about, you talked about that with Dr. Mandy, right? This thing of the me time gets pushed off of the schedule and pushed away. And I'm like, put on your own oxygen mask every day. Don't wait until it's an emergency. Don't wait until your plane is crashing. Every day, put that oxygen mask on for yourself first. What would that look like instead of waiting until you are crashing? Because once you're crashing, it's going to be a much longer road back to recovery. But if you really establish some boundaries and intentions and start putting your own oxygen mask on first every day, that is one of the best ways to combat burnout.
I love that analogy. I've never heard it before. I think that's fantastic because that's exactly what burnout is you're crashing and burning. You're crashing and burning. And it's very hard sometimes to come out of that feeling of just having enough, and as Dr. Mandy was talking about the mood swings, the not wanting to do things you used to enjoy, all those, it's a mind F-U-C-K, burnout is. And then you put on top of that all the responsibilities we have as women. And a lot of us are business owners at this age too. So, wow. I have a question before we bring Dr. Mandy back on. What is a tip that you have?
So one of my favorite, like simple, easy tips that I like to give to people is to cross one thing off your to-do list every day without doing it. Now I give this assignment. I give this assignment to a lot of clients, and occasionally I have a client who really struggles with it. And one time I had a client say, so when do I do it? Like, when do I add that thing back onto my list? And I said, well, you don't, because I promise you, you are putting things onto your own to-do list that are not necessary. We all do it, right? We have this list of like, these are the things I should be doing or I need to do. And a lot of times all of those things are not necessary. So a really great tip, if you feel like you are close to burnout or you know that you're in it, is to start taking one thing off your list every day and just don't do it. And recognize, like, start to learn that, like, I'm putting expectations on myself. Because what I find with clients I work with, we think that it's like other people that are putting those expectations on us, but it's not. It's usually we put that on ourselves, and we think that we have to do all of these things and be all of these things. And it's just not true. So by crossing one thing off your list every day without doing it, you start to realize that all of those expectations you're putting on yourself are unnecessary. Like, nothing bad is going to happen if you don't clean on top of your fridge, or if you don't, send out every single email that you think that you need to respond to, if sometimes you just let things go.
That's so interesting. And I see Mandy shaking her head. Mandy, what do you think of that concept? I'm trying to think of what would I do? What would I take off that would not be something I don't have to do?
Yes, I work with clients all the time. I'm telling them, like, or it's even that we don't have to do it to the degree we think. Like, maybe you have your kid's birthday party coming up, but do you really have to hand make all the decorations and the cupcakes, or can you order them from a bakery and go to the dollar store and get some things and hang them up? Like, we can do less. But I love that. Do less to do more, really.
Yeah.
Or make more or accomplish more. It's key.
I love that. Okay, so the two of you now listening to each other, is there one last parting thing that you would want to leave with folks? Because this is going to live out there on YouTube forever. Is there anything else you want to leave that someone could do, and or you could tease up that you're going to give it at this LifeCon, but it's up to you. What would you like to leave our viewers about burnout? Oh, and before you do that, I want to share. So I had burnout so bad at the beginning of this year, and I think I've experienced it more so than I recognized in the past. But this year, for some reason, after losing my business partner Guadalupe, not losing her in that way, as you all know, but she had burnout, so she left the company last fall. And while I was excited for her, I was also excited for myself to continue on the company that I had started in 2018. And I was blessed enough to have her come on board back then. I then, fast forward, that was October, fast forward to January, I started feeling the same thing she did. I actually started feeling resentment, not towards her, by the way, just for the work that we were doing with Second Act Women. It felt like we were doing it for naught. The revenue wasn't there. I was just burned out on just doing, and not getting the results that I was wanting to achieve or have for our women and myself. And I was so burned out that I actually started looking for a job. I was actually going to move Second Act Women to the side and take it on as a part-time gig and or sell the company. And then I got a crisis call in March. And that changed everything. It changed my world when my mother had my stroke. So I immediately had to change course on several different things in life. And at that time, I had two New Yorkers, Mimi and Jackie, who sensed I was burning out. And I also admitted it to them. They actually have a company called the Modern Gen X Woman, who I did tell them I was burning out. And I'm not a coach, but coaches need coaches. And they sat with me on the phone, and I was reinvigorated again, especially after we're still in the process of my mom, but I felt it. I learned that how to set boundaries. I've set boundaries for myself since. I took the positive intelligence class. I did things for me, basically. And the person that I'm talking with tonight is a person I interviewed with, and I didn't get the job. But we liked each other so much that I have her as my cocktails and conversations guest tonight. And I believe the person who has the job that I went for is probably going to be there tonight as well. And I can't wait to meet her. So things happen for a reason, but burnout is real. And then you start making these drastic decisions. What would you say to that when you do start making these decisions that ultimately may not be the best for you, but you're so in it? Because I don't think it would have been the best thing for me to do, but at the moment it felt right. And I'm glad I didn't do it. What do you say to that? I'm sure that happens a lot of times where you let go of something that, damn it, if you just would have held on and maybe took care of yourself for a moment, stepped away, and then came back to it. What do you say to that?
Yeah, so that I have a similar story. I sold my chiropractic business at the end of 2021. So last year was really the first year in this virtual business, even though I was kind of doing it on the side before that. It's, totally a new business. And last year, my dad had a major surgery. I lost my soulmate dog last year. So I had a lot of personal things going on. And then that affected me having time and energy to build my business. So hit 2023 and business is nowhere where I want it to be. And then I start the year off with COVID. So another, nail in the coffin. And by April, I was like, I need some income. I need some steady income.
Right.
And I completed my health coaching certification. So I interviewed for a health coach job. The salary is laughable, but they pay health coaches now. But I considered taking it. They were like, well, we only want 20 hours a week. I'm like, I can do both. And
Right.
it was, thank goodness it was my husband that said, no, I think you should put your efforts on this business and, build your business. And if you decide in a year or two that you want to take a job, there'll be other opportunities. And I'm super glad that he said that, because April, May, like my business started booming and things started happening. I launched my professional speaking career this year. So
That's me, Mandy. That's what happened as well. I started getting paid to speak, and it's been on my vision board for years, and I've never acted on it. I've been told I should do it, never acted on it. And it just took that moment of burnout, I think, and all that struggle to happen. I also live with depression. So in that moment, usually I now share it. But yeah, I went down a rabbit hole, and yeah, that's what happened with me as well. Chrysta, do you have anything similar that's happened to you that you had an aha moment or something you could share?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, in general, I think making any major life transition, I personally believe that most of the time it's a good idea to wait 6 months before you make any big
Great idea.
personal transition, but especially, I just want to throw out there, I want to say, especially during perimenopause, because I've talked with a lot of other women about this. And here's my thing: whatever stressors you have in your life, and when you're going through perimenopause, the perimenopause is going to make things feel completely unmanageable. And I have seen a lot of women blow up their life during perimenopause. And I personally had aspects of blowing up my life when I was going through perimenopause, that now that I'm a couple of years postmenopausal, I look back and I think, I wish I had just slowed down a little bit and waited before making some of those choices, because yes, there were things that needed to be addressed in my life. Yes, there were challenges, and there were issues, but they weren't maybe as bad as it felt like they were in the moment when you've got all those hormones going crazy.
Yep.
And you're like, and you just think in that moment, like that feeling, it's like a visceral feeling in your body of like, I can't take this anymore. Like, this isn't okay. I have to do something different. But that feeling is
Yeah.
sometimes like, yes, there's underlying issues that need to be addressed, but that feeling, just when you're going through, I don't know, I'm sure Dr. Mandy can speak to this better, because she gets the hormone piece of it, but like those hormones will, I don't know if I want to say they'll lie to you, but they will like make things seem out of control when they're maybe not quite that out of control.
Yes, yes. And I love this advice about waiting 6 months. By the way, that's a whole nother symptom I hadn't heard about that happens with peri or any menopause, was the blowing up of things. That your mind, I get it. Yeah. Speaking of menopause and peri, I mean, there's 32 symptoms, and so we're also going through one, if not multiple of those symptoms while we're trying to live our life, while we're going through burnout and the brain fog and the this, that, and the other. So I want to thank you too for coming today. And I cannot wait to have you share more in your individual workshops at BizLifeCon. I just think the world of you too. And I'm so happy we met outside of here. And yeah, I look forward to having you. And so I want to say thank you to everyone. And I'm going to be putting, by the way, some of your tips, I'll put it into the comments so that women, and links to, and I'll be tagging you too, so you can share it. So I just want to thank you, and thank everyone for watching the Morning Cup. I will see everybody back here next week on the Morning Cup at 9:30, because I'm going to change the time. I'm discovering that's a better time. So see you all later. Thank you, ladies.